Hello everyone, welcome back. Welcome back to my pod, Black Medical Diaries. My name is Dr. China. I'm not telling you my government name. I'm a UK resident, family medicine resident, or as we say in the UK, I'm a general practice trainee. And this is my podcast. We speak about all things humanized doctors and also shared experiences of doctors in the UK, especially Black medical doctors, and also to educate the Black community. So hopefully you guys will be encouraged, educated, and maybe entertained, because apparently I have a interesting personality. For those of you who don't know, so I've got three different platforms. So if one of my full podcasts, go on YouTube to see the videos, Spotify just for the audio, and TikTok is where I share health information for the Black community in a more unusual way, and Instagram is where I share things about my Black medical experience, or my experience as a Black medical doctor. One of the first topics I'm going to talk about is medicine in the UK as a whole. So the aim of this video or podcast is to educate you on what it's like UK in medicine in the UK in general, what it's like being a doctor here, and also what's going on, kind of like the current affairs of what's going on. And hopefully from here I can explain why your outpatient appointments are taking 15 months, 18 months, why you're waiting A&E for 6 hours. There's all an explanation, guys. We're not just being lazy. There is genuine explanations, and has to do with the government, management, and money. Are there not enough doctors? Yes and no. How do I answer this question really well? In the UK, there are different levels of doctors. So there's medical students. That's obviously, you go to university to learn how to be a doctor. It's a minimum 5 years. It can take up to 6-7 years, depending on whether you take a foundation year or you intercalate as well. Or sometimes we do a gap year or take a year out. So it just depends, but it's minimum 5 years. You can either end up to finish a degree with an MBBS, a Bachelor in Medicine and Surgery, or you can have an extra degree, a BSc or an MSc or whatever, MRes. So after you finish a university degree, there's lots of things that happen between first year and final year, especially in the final year. There's lots of things that happen to ensure you get a place in the UK training program. So the first stage of UK training program is the foundation training program. So this is 2 years. That's it. It's just, in America, I think they call it the intern years. So this is basically, you're fresh out of medical school, fresh from finals. You're in a new world of the NHS, working as a full-time adult. So during your foundation training, the aim is for you to implement the education that you've learned for the last 5 or so years into, and put into practical terms as a doctor, and learn how to work with people in real time, and also learn about the nuances of working in the NHS, such as tech, policies, and other human factors that are involved. So all UK foundation doctors have to do at least, so the different specialties we have to do is acute specialties, the internal medical specialties, and the surgical specialties, and the community specialties. So that's 4 different areas of medicine in the UK that you need to know about, and I think this is the same globally, actually. So in terms of community, the main community ones we do are psychiatry and general practice. Some people do public health, but anyway. In terms of acute medicine, this includes intensive care medicine, acute medicine, and emergency medicine. In terms of internal medicine, this includes respiratory, gastroenterology, endocrinology and diabetes, general medicine, geriatric medicine or frailty medicine, older people's medicine, stroke medicine, palliative care medicine, and oncology and hematology. In regards to surgical specialties, it could be anything. Some people do general surgery, orthopedics, and the more subspecialties, the more specialized areas such as plastics, oral, maxillofacial, and yeah, I think that's it. If I miss anything, please let me know. So basically, yeah, so you spend your 2 years just dipping in and out of those specialties, and the main aim is so that you are well trained and well rounded as a doctor. So they build a foundation of you as a doctor, your education, you consolidate your education, your learning everything. And also so maybe you can figure out what you really want to do. Some people know what they want to do from before medical school. Some people find out during medical school. Some people find out during foundation program. Some people find out after. So after you finish your 2 years, you have to fulfill certain criteria, requirements before you can move on, basically, in terms of like your skills. There's different areas of a doctor that you're assessed on throughout your whole career, and it starts in medical school. It says whether are you can be a good doctor, can you teach, are you good at learning, are you good at reflection, clinical skills that doctors need, can you examine well, can you speak to patients well, do you have enough medical knowledge regarding different diseases, do you have clinical reasoning, do you know how the human body interacts with disease to diagnose and manage patients. So yeah, medicine is a huge specialty, and unfortunately the government has made it seem that we're just dumb. We're just dumbos. I don't know what we're doing, which is so sad because, people think, oh, well, I can be a doctor. I just need to go on Google and then I'll figure out what's going on. I'm just like, it's not that easy. It's not that simple, actually. Okay. During your foundation program, not only are you learning about, what you're required as a doctor, you're training to be a doctor. This is also the time where people, whilst they figure out what they're doing, they will start to apply for the different specialties. So as I said before, there's 4 areas of medicine. There are some overlaps with like the specialists, so like the life stage specialties such as pediatrics and obstetrics and gynecology, or as in America they call it OBGYN. I forgot to mention, yes, some deaneries, they allow their foundation doctors to do the life specialty, the life stage specialties. Unfortunately, I didn't do any of the life stage specialties, and now here I am as a GP trainee. Yeah. So basically in foundation year, once you figure out what you want to do, let's say there's 5 areas of medicine, then you have to start the application process. You have to, prepare your portfolio. Your portfolio is kind of like your medical CV. You might have to do courses to show that you have interest in that career. Some people start to do things like clinical audit. Some people do research projects. Yeah, and some people do teaching sessions just to show that, I really want to do this specialty, and this is evidence that I actually want to do my specialty. Some people also do the specialty exams, the entrance exams. So you have to do like your membership, Royal College of whatever membership. So, for example, for emergency medicine, it's the Royal College of Emergency Medicine. For medicine in the UK, for internal medicine, it's the Royal College of Physicians exams. And you have to do the MRCP, which is the membership is the exam to be a member of the Royal College of Physicians. And surgery is the MRCS, the membership to become a member of the Royal College of Surgeons. And then there's other more specific ones for the other specialties. There's the multi-specialty recruitment assessment. Some people doing an F1, but I advise people to do an F2, because in F1 you don't really have a full medical license. You have a provisional license, because in your first year it's like you'll learn to be a doctor with training wheels. In your second year, that's when they're like, okay, no more training wheels. You're actually a senior house officer now. You're not a junior house officer. So after you figure out what you're doing, you do your application, you do the exams, and then you do your interviews. Once you find out what you're doing, then this comes the point where specialty training. So people either go to the community, or you branch off into the hospital. So in the community, you can branch out into the general practice training, specialist training program, which is what I'm doing. Or you can branch out to do run-throughs such as psychiatry, pediatrics, or obs and gynae. Those are run-throughs. So for internal medicine, the specialty training program is called internal medical training. For acute specialties such as intensive care, acute medicine, and emergency medicine and anesthetics, the training program is called the acute care, common care specialties. For surgery, it's the core surgical training program. Most medics branch off into these areas. And then hopefully from there, people will train. So with GP training is for 3 years. For the other specialties, it's anywhere. So it can be from 6 years. Emergency medicine is 6 years, and other specialties 8 years, sometimes longer, depending on whether you do a fellowship, a research fellowship, or any other leadership fellowship, or you do like a master's or PhD during your time in training, or whether you drop down to part-time, less than full-time, or just part-time training. Minimum 6 years in hospital. Now, hopefully, by the end of the training programs, you should either end up as a hospital consultant, a surgical consultant, or a general practitioner. Now, that's the summary of everything. Also, during your specialty training, you're doing lots of exams, lots of courses, lots of projects, audits, quality improvement projects, teaching, leadership projects, reflections, portfolio stuff, trying to tick box clinical procedures that you get. Surgeons, they have to get certain procedures done, for example, like appendectomies, like laparotomies, and Hartmann procedures, So In summary, the medical career is not easy. It's not that straightforward. It's very time consuming, lots of sacrifice, lots of work, lots of studying, lots of teaching, lots of learning, lots of money. Recruitment. So recruitment is, how will I explain this? So different specialties have different competitive rates, and this depends on the requirements they are in the country. I haven't gone online to do the research, but I might do later on and might post in a different video. But different specialties have different competitive rates depending on how popular they are, how sexy they are. For example, surgeries tends to be more surgery and anesthetics are the top most competitive specialties to get into. GP is starting to climb. Apparently the least popular was things like psychiatry and la. Dermatology is also very popular. Plastics, ENT is ear, nose and throat surgery, or as America that you guys say, otolaryngology. I don't know why Americans are like this. Sorry. So the more competitive a specialty is, the more things you need to do to make your portfolio look sexy and to make your interview go tip top. But what you should know, guys, is that normally by F2, everyone knows what they're doing, everyone knows where they're going, and doing specialty training, everyone is on the pathway to becoming a consultant. So that's why medicine has been advertised 98% employability. Now, let's talk about what's happened in the last 5 years in the UK also. Or it might be happening longer. What's happening, guys? Apparently, there are not enough doctors. Are there not enough doctors? What's going on? So in the UK nationally, depending on what trust or hospital trust we're in, there are certain specialties that there's a shortage of doctors. Okay, why do we need doctors? Why are doctors important? General practice and A&E, they're the gatekeepers of medicine. General practice are the gatekeepers of health in general. A&E gatekeepers of more so hospital medicine. Now, what do I mean by that? GPs will determine whether your condition can be managed in the community long term or whether you need to be referred to secondary care or hospital services. A&E doctors will decide whether this is just an acute episode that GP can't really deal with, for example like a fracture, or whether your treatment is something, your condition is something. They'll tell you to refer yourself back to your GP who will deal with the condition and refer you through outpatient services, or whether their GP can manage themselves. Or A&E doctors will decide, actually you're very sick, we need to treat you now so that you don't go on to develop complications or die. But A&E is basically to save lives. So the way hospital flow works is that A&E doctors diagnose, they triage, discharge patients home, or discharge them to the acute clinic, medical clinic, or they discharge them to the surgical clinic, or they discharge them into the hospital, so they admit them into whatever specialty. So they have to refer patients to whatever specialty they think. For the NHS to run optimally, there needs to be a constant flow. There's inpatient flow and there's outpatient flow. So outpatient flow is more so run by registrars and consultants. So this is for conditions that, for example, like osteoarthritis or endometriosis, or the cancer. Cancer is the most common condition treated in outpatient, and inflammatory disorders and degenerative disorders. In terms of inpatients, it's normally the junior doctors that control the flow, and also consultants and registrars. So there's two different flows happening in a parallel manner, and they can also patients can go from inpatient to outpatient to inpatient. So that flow, there's a parallel flow, and there's also a flow happening between these parallel pathways of patient care. So basically, what do we need? We need enough consultants to diagnose and manage patients, because they're the ones that oversee patient care in general. They make the final decisions. We need registrars that bridge the gap between the more junior doctors and the consultants. So registrars are like consultants in training. So they are in charge, but they have the penultimate say, but not the final say. The consultant has the final say. But normally registrars are more available 24/7 round the clock. Consultants are normally available between the hours of 8 till 6 p.m. and then after that, out of hours, they only come into hospital if there's like a emergency that the registrars can't deal with. But most of the time registrars can deal with that. So they are the most crucial people that we need. But at the same time, registrars and consultants need the junior doctors, so the foundation doctors and the senior health officers, so F1, F2s, and the internal medical trainees, the core surgical trainees. They need these individuals to carry out their plans. They need these individuals to do kind of like the floor work, so clerking patients, seeing patients, prescribing, giving medications, doing the procedures, like the basic procedures like taking blood, doing cannulas, talking to patients, talking to relatives, information giving, consultations, ordering investigations, referring, doing letters, lots of admin. So doctors from foundation level and the SHO level, they do most of the floor work. Now the problem that's happening in the UK at the moment is the problems occur when a doctor doesn't go through the flow of training. There's a halt, either a halt or stagnation. A halt can happen for many reasons, whether it could be that a doctor gets pregnant, or they become sick, or they just get time out of training, so they start doing more academic work, more research, or altogether they're just like, I'm actually going to take a break from working on a training program on a rota. I'm going to actually temporarily work ad hoc, which we call locum. So doctors tend to do that when, there's many reasons why a doctor wants to locum. Either they're not sure what they want to do after foundation program, or they're trying to build up the portfolio for a future, for whatever specialty they want to do, or as I said before, academic reasons, research reasons, or family reasons, or sickness or personal reasons. There's many reasons why doctors locum. Now I think the problem really started when during COVID, when a lot of people, unfortunately in COVID, a lot of people died, a lot of people were sick, and that includes doctors. A lot of doctors were burnt out from the sheer amount of stress from COVID. Now, I'm not saying the stress happened just during COVID. The stress of doctors was ongoing. There was a small, tiny leakage. There was a quiet leakage of doctors leaving the NHS to go either leave the NHS or taking a break, going to locum, or leaving the country, completely. Because, as I said before, I don't know if you guys heard the first 10 minutes, I was basically explaining the process of becoming a doctor and training of becoming a consultant is very arduous, very hard, very long hours. You have to come work. You're working with real life people with real life illnesses that really affect people's psyche. That takes a brunt on people. You're working with different people, different personalities. There's lots of clashes, even between patients, sometimes between clinicians and patients, and sometimes between staff. And actually between staff is the most common thing that we experience. So when you're going through that, and also you have to come back home and think about preparing your portfolio, doing extra work, studying extra, doing extra work, quality improvement projects, personal projects, learning projects, academic projects, so that you can get onto a training program and also continue your medical development. When you have to do all that as a doctor, won't you be tired yourself? It's hard. Now, I know some people are going to be like, well, that's what we're paying for. We're paying the taxes for that. I'm going to talk about how much pay we get, because it's a myth. We're not paid that much. We're actually not paid that much. And only people that are friends with doctors or married to doctors will know and realize, right, doctors don't earn that much money. Everything we do is out of goodwill. Not just doctors, nurses, physios, everything's done out of free will. But unfortunately, the government is taking advantage of our free will. And that's the reason why they overworked us. Now, training a doctor is very expensive. Even though we pay for a lot of the things ourselves, but the medical training program, the postgraduate training program, which is foundation program, the specialty training program, they cost the NHS and the government money. They do, but it's important, because basically our decisions can kill or keep someone alive, make their life worse, better, if we're not careful. So obviously you want them to know what they're doing. It's very important to invest in these people, isn't it? It's a lot, you're dealing with real life human emotions. Some doctors are robots and they're not in touch with humans, but that's the minority of doctors, the vast minority. The minority is probably 0.0 some percent of doctors that, don't really care about their patients. But most doctors do care about patients, So when you have to do that, and you also got your own life, also got your own family, you're trying to be your own human being, because people forget that doctors were own human beings. You're gonna feel, you're gonna want to take time out or leave or go to a different career where you're being appreciated more, because as much as what we do is, change people's lives, we're helping people, we get rewarded the least. We get rewarded the least. If I tell you some of the conditions us doctors have to work under, and nurses, y'all will be shocked. If I tell you that some of our offices are shoe cupboards, cleaning cupboards, y'all will be shocked. That sometimes we don't have a place to even hang our coats, so we have to put on the chair. We have to put our bags on the floor. Okay? We barely get a cup of coffee. The food's trash. The on-call rooms, do they even exist? Even they do, they stink. They're dusty, musty, moldy. You probably sleep there and get sick yourself as a doctor. Okay? Yes, American doctors, we are going through it in the UK. We are going through it. Okay? are going through it. So when you think about all of these together, you're just going to be like, you know what? And also, as a doctor, when you get lots of complaints from people about you're not doing a good enough job, you're not helping, because unfortunately we're not perfect. Sometimes we make mistakes. Human errors exist, and people will complain because people are people. People have the right to complain. Don't get me wrong, but complaints carry negative energy, and when you're constantly getting negative energy and not enough positive energy, it can, why would you quit? So the leakage of losing doctors has been happening, but COVID amplified it by 1,000. Let's say in a year, let's say you have 100 foundation doctors in a hospital. Let's say I have 100 of them, 10 become locums or leave, and then everyone else goes to specialty training program. Now, what happened during COVID or after COVID was that this number jumped from 10 to 50 and about 60. So imagine you're expecting 90 doctors to become either GPs, surgeons, or medical doctors in the hospital. Yeah. Imagine you're expecting all acute doctors. Imagine you're expecting these 90 doctors to go there. All of a sudden, you got 50. And it's like, okay. And the workload of 90 people is still there, but you got 50 people. And what happens is that when you got less doctors, there's only so many patients we can see, because if we see too many patients too quickly, errors can happen. And also it depends on resources. Sometimes resources won't allow us to see a certain amount of patients or deal with some certain amount of patients. And also some of the resources include hospital beds, space in hospital, space in clinic, it's clinic time. When you got these resources, limited resources, only so many patients you can see. And that's why the outpatient list it exploded during COVID. The waiting list for outpatients, everything, it exploded. And that's one of the reasons. A&E waiting times exploded, skyrocketed through the roof. That's one of the reasons happened, because doctors got exhausted. Now, so let's say 50 of those doctors, they left. Some of them became locum doctors, so they still were working in NHS. They were still working, but not on a consistent basis. They were on a rota, so it was more like they were working on an unpredictable basis according to the NHS. But the doctors, they wanted to gain more control. Most people are looking to get more control over their finances and over their time. Some of those doctors left the NHS completely, either going to Australia, New Zealand, and nowadays some are going to America, but not as many British graduates go to America actually. So obviously, if you haven't got as much people become registrars, consultants, as I said before, the outpatient list goes up, surgical waiting list go up. So now, and also the floor work, there's not as much doctors on the floor. Not how many doctors who can clerk, see patients, prescribe for patients, write discharge letters for patients. So what the government did is that they were like, you know what? Our British doctors don't want to work. We ain't got enough British doctors. We're going to open a book. I sound like a Tory. We're just going to open applications to work as a doctor internationally, globally. Now, every country does allow other doctors to work in the country, America, Canada, but they tend to prioritize their national native graduates over international graduates. Whereas in the UK, they kind of said, scrap that, everyone can come in. And that's because a lot of people from other countries, the people that are coming in, they're like specialty doctors, they're consultants. They've had years of experience being in doctors in, for example, cardiology, respiratory medicine, endocrinology. So you get influx of lots of doctors. So we call it international medical graduates. So there's a massive influx of doctors, and that's probably why a lot of you might notice the demographics of doctors in the UK has changed. If you look at the hospitals now, because there's more British doctors outside the UK than there are in the UK. That's why the NHS has changed. And the reason why they did this is because they wanted to fill up the holes left by British doctors from leaving the NHS or just becoming locum doctors. And what is that with these doctors, because they're on work visas, they cannot really locum. They're not really. They are on a fixed contract, and this contract means that they're on a lower pay than that of a locum doctor, so they're cheaper to run than locum doctors. So, and because of the work visa, they're not just going to go off sick and take days off. They have to work a certain number of days a year and not take too many sick days, because apparently if you take too many days off, they will send you back. But a lot of these doctors, when they come, even though they're consultant registrars, because the UK training program to create consultants has certain criteria, these criteria kind of don't align with the ones outside. I don't know if I've explained it well, but basically, even though they're consultant, they haven't done the regulatory exams that are compliant with the UK training program requirements, such as like Royal College exams and all that stuff, certain portfolio requirements. For example, let's say in India, to become a general surgeon, you need 50 laparotomies. And let's say 20 laparotomies. In the UK, they're like, no, 20 is too small. We need 50. The only way you can fulfill that criteria is if you join the core surgical training program. So what happens is a lot of these doctors, they come in. So the government or the NHS created posts such called junior clinical fellowship posts. Now these posts have always existed. They're kind of like for doctors that finish foundation training program, but they don't know what to do, but they don't want to become a locum, but they still want to have like a consistent source of work. And they normally tend to stay in one department. So what's happened is that they've overfilled the role of junior doctors, senior health officers. Let's say normally they have like 100 SHOs that go into specialty training. Now they've got 1,000, okay, and some of those become junior clinical fellows. But this is not a permanent post. This is a post that's transitional. You are expected to either graduate onwards to specialty training programs. And also what the UK has already also done, they've increased the number of medical schools in the UK. I think there's like 5 additional medical schools. I don't know, I graduated years ago. And also they're increasing the number of places in the medical schools. So what you've left with is that you have so many doctors at F1 and F2 level. There's so many, there's been a massive influx of these doctors. And I also forgot to mention that not only you get international medical graduates from like Nigeria, India, Pakistan, you also get international medical graduates from East Europe. When I was applying many years ago in the early 10s, that's how old I am, going to European medical schools wasn't popular because it's like, why would I go to a country where they barely speak English, they don't speak English? But in the last 10 years or so, it just became more popular. So now we're getting more European medical school graduates are actually British. So obviously they're British, they want to come back home work in NHS, because why not? You want to come back home, you know, you got a burgundy passport or a black passport. Is it black? Yeah, it's black. I don't know, what color is the British passport? I don't know. Obviously you're getting these people coming in. So you got the European medical graduates that are mostly British, you got the international medical graduates, you got the British medical graduates themselves, okay? You got all these people that the government's just like, you know, we need more SHOs, bring more SHOs, we need more doctors, fill up the post. So they are filling up the posts at a junior level, at the most junior level. So, you know, got more doctors for clerking, prescribing, admitting patients, discharging patients. They got loads of doctors for that. Now, you would think, yeah, if you're pouring water into a bowl, you would think that, okay, you're going to want to make the pipe bigger, right? Open more spaces in the higher up levels, open up spaces in the registrar and consultant levels, so that now you got more doctors here. The only way to have more doctors up here is if you create more places here, more places here. Now, the problem is, the government is like, actually, training a registrar and a consultant is too expensive. We already have funding to train. Let me give an arbitrary number. We don't have enough money to train 100 registrars in a hospital and pay for 100 consultants. So we're not going to open up those spaces. So you've got 1,000 doctors at F1, F2 level, SHO level, who are not in specialty training programs, who are wanted against the specialty training programs, because even a lot of locums is a transitional phase. They're taking a break. It's an interim phase, so that they can go to specialty training program. You got 1,000 junior doctors here, 50 posts here, 50 posts there. So what's going to happen? There's going to be a job market problem. So that's why the medical students who are graduating from medical school, they're applying for the foundation training program, and they're like, there's not that many spaces. And actually, you know what this funny thing is? The government have been prioritizing employing the international medical graduates and not British over the British ones, because the international medical graduates, on paper, they have more experience and more clinical knowledge, because a lot of them are specialists and consultants back home. So obviously the government's like, hold on a second. These guys are way more experienced. They're less likely to make mistakes medically. They know what they're doing. Consultants we normally pay 72,000 for. We're paying consultants from our countries £38,000. Bargain? Why not? So obviously they're like, why are we going to pay for British graduates who are going to take sick leave, annual leave, and probably become a locum or probably F off to New Zealand or America or Canada? Well, these people are here, they're on a work visa, they ain't going nowhere. Me cheaper. Ban the UK graduates. Ban the UK medical trainees. Ban them all. For those of you who don't know slang, basically this explains why so many doctors are struggling with work. Doctors here are struggling to get there. Doctors here are even struggling to get there. It's so competitive now. It's extremely competitive. And even the specialties that I mentioned before that usually culturally in the medical culture are known to be not the pretty ones, even they're becoming saturated. Why? A lot of junior clinical fellowships, they're like 1 year. And a lot of these people don't work visas. They don't have the luxury of waiting 2 months, a month without a job. They are fighting to get onto a training program. Because once you're in a training program, that's 8 years, guaranteed stay in the UK. You know? So they're fighting to get in. So, and they're doing their best, and they got more experience than that British doctor. That's why a lot of people are struggling to get onto the ladder of specialty training. That's what's happening. Now, this effect is called bottlenecking. It's a term that was coined about 2 years ago. Bottlenecking is serious, guys. And another thing that's happened in the UK as well, the NHS is more invested in service provision. And because they've oversimplified the job of a doctor, unfortunately, a few bad eggs of doctors have ruined it. I've given the government and the public the poor impression that being a doctor is easy. It's not that hard. What the government done is said, you know what, we're going to upskill nurses, upskill paramedics, upskill physios, upskilled occupational therapists, made it a 1 year master degree, teach them a little bit of medicine, and then make them do the job of a doctor as a senior house officer. And these are called advanced clinical practitioners or physician associates. So what they're doing, the government's like, well, all doctors do is prescribe and talk to patients. That's not much. That's not much clinical knowledge. They don't need that. Nurses can memorize management plans. So why not pay a £7,000 master's course and then pay these guys 50k to become ACPs and PAs and ANPs, which is advanced nurse practitioners, physician associates, and advanced clinical practitioners, compared to doctors who cost so much money to train them and make them do the surgical stuff, make them do these things. It's too expensive. Why not? So, as I said before, guys, everything's about money. So obviously, you got these AMPs and ACPs who are, doing the jobs of senior house officers. So now, what's happening as well, the first thing that got knocked off last year was locum jobs, because if you've got lots of international medical graduates who are now filling in the spaces of junior doctors, and you got the PAs and AMPs and non-medical staff now filling up the jobs of junior doctors, you don't need locum doctors. People that graduate medical school, people are already doing their job. They're not needed as much. There's actually a medical job crisis right now. You cannot be an F3, F4 anymore. You cannot if you want to be a full-time locum, you're putting yourself at job risk and financial risk. Why do I say that? It happened to me and hundreds of other locums. Hundreds last year were out of work for almost a year. Some people have been out of work for 2 years. There's no jobs because too many international medical graduates, there's too many British graduates, and there's too many British European medical graduates. In relation to the amount of registrar and consultant positions and training program positions, I wouldn't say this if they created the space, guys. If they created more spaces, everybody's happy. The internationals are happy, the British are happy, the ones that are coming back from Europe are happy. Everybody's happy. There's more registrars, there's more consultants. We're clearing the outpatient list. Waiting lists are becoming shorter. Patients are happy. A&E waiting times are going down. Everybody's happy. But no, the government doesn't want to spend more money on these. They'd rather spend more money training non-medical staff to do the job of doctors, more money, less money training people. They want to bring already trained medical persons, and because they don't want to spend money anymore. You want to go to New Zealand? F off. You want to go to America? F off. You want to go to Australia? F off. You want to leave medicine? Fine, go. Stay tuned for part 2 as to, given all I've said, is there a point of being a doctor? Should I stay a doctor? What are the pros of being a doctor? The cons? What are the other things you can do with your medical degree? And Stay tuned and peace, guys.